Hey, Tom here, FlipAnythingUSA. Sorry I haven't been on here for a few days. I've had some really horrific weather here in Texas. It has been pretty rough. We've had a thing called freezing rain, and I'm going to show you some of that. And I've got just tens of thousands of dollars in damage, maybe, yeah, in there somewhere. Certainly, maybe at least 20, 30,000. And you'll see just guys doing cleanup, and it's the city, of course, will take away a lot of this stuff. In some ways, there's a little bit of a blessing with it too. I don't know if we'll get into that too much today, but hey, it's you can call in if you got a question you want to ask or anything like that. Been buying and selling real estate for 41 years, going on 42 years. Been a fantastic way to make a living, and we'll catch up. I'll show you some of this stuff. We can talk about fake gurus. We can talk about subject to. We can talk about the pros and cons of subject to. And there's some big ones that don't really get talked about. Some people don't even realize what they are, I don't think. And it's not the way I make my money, to be quite honest. I'll create financing and have it in place for the next guy that buys behind me. But they will have something that they can truly assume. And it won't be very complicated or circuitous, as it's more of a legal term lawyers use when you're doing something very, all over the place. Hey, Paul. Thanks again. I love my truck. Paul, here's one of my students, and was nice enough to help me. Actually, that's not Paul. Sorry, Paul. I'm saying Jose. Anyways, hang in here. We'll be right back.
It's the best thing I ever did. Yo, stop and listen. Time is on a mission to eliminate all of the snake oil and the fake gurus that fake y'all. He'll show you how to build an empire, starting with nothing but a desire. All you really need is a good mentor, not a used car bullshit. With time, you'll learn to crush it. Investing like Warren Buffett. With real estate, you cannot procrastinate. Everyone who hesitates is left at the starting gate. Hey, yo, so don't delay and join today. The mentorship and flip anything. USA, go.
Great. Didn't mean to give you that rap song just so early in the show, but anyways, you got it. Let me get us over here to, first of all, if you're new to the channel, check out my book, Wake Up and Smell the Real Estate. It's been a bestseller on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. I also have a mentorship. You definitely don't want to get away without hearing about that or knowing about that. The mentorship, I can tell you, it is, and you'll see all these buildings and different things that I've owned in my lifetime. Some I still own, some I don't own, but all I've made lots of money on. It's an apartment building. That one on the cross street, between the two of them, I made about $1.5 million on. There's another one right behind on my head right there. That's another one I bought, and I don't know, made a couple $100,000 quite quickly. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about. We're going to talk about real estate. If you guys want to call in, you can call in on that number you see up there. I believe it's working. So feel free to do that. If you got a question, I'd be happy to address it. And the other thing here, let's see. Okay. All right. I've got, actually, this is interesting. So actually, this is from my class that I just had, a mentorship. Real quick, I'll talk about this for a second. Because not everything's an off-market deal. A lot of people think, and I've made a lot of off-market deals, and I teach people in my mentorship how to do that stuff, which, by the way, here's the mentorship real quick. And so here's the mentorship. Let's go to FlipAnythingUSA.com, and you can check it out. Take this, the mentorship survey, and you can have a couple minutes to talk to me absolutely free. I'll answer any question you got, and just point you in the best direction I can. May not be, hang out with me, it may not be, but if you do, you'll be in great company. I can tell you, take a look at these guys while you're there. This is one of my latest testimonials. This is Mike Stizza. He's fairly new in the class. He just bought a fourth house too now, but he's already flipped those three, and he can tell you about it in that video. Ken here, This is when he made his first $600,000. He went on to make another $500,000 or so in equity. He's got 2 nice commercial buildings, which is why even though he'd been in real estate for about 30 years, he didn't feel comfortable with commercial real estate, which is something I'm very familiar with. You know, that's one of the things that everybody can get with me is I've started buying houses and land. Actually, I started buying commercial and industrial, and I still continue to buy all that kind of stuff. And so when you have a mentor that you can ask all those kinds of questions, and for you out there tonight, you can ask me any questions you want. I'm going to be having dinner with my kids here pretty soon, but you ask Garrett here's made money. Ron's made over $3 million by his own, calculations. Eric here showed a check. He said $707,000. He showed the check. He said he made it 100%. Every bit of it was profit. He attributes it to things he's learned in the mentorship. And Liam here, I personally worked my ass off side by side with him on his deals. He's made over $560,000. Steve here, he's been just a pleasure. I haven't seen him much lately, but he's made over $1 million just between the 2 buildings that he bought. Yeah, that's one of them behind there. You can watch his interview too. It's pretty great. And Kai, of course, he's a young man building his empire. That's what I want to do. I want to see everybody build their empire. I really hate to see anybody hand their money to a fake guru. In fact, I got a video coming out tomorrow. You don't want to miss it for sure. And it's a gentleman that invested about $200,000 with Grant Cardone, and he can tell you how happy or unhappy he is with that return. And he thinks his money's tied up for 10 years, and it's a shame. It really is a shame. So anyways, go to FlipAnythingUSA.com, and number one, hit subscribe. Don't miss this channel. I'm probably one of the most, these are the comments I get. You are the most unappreciated channel on why don't you have 1 million followers? And I honestly believe YouTube's got a thumb on me because I've said some things politically, and I think it's squashed the growth. And they're unforgiving, I think. I don't know, YouTube, if you're listening, take the thumb off, please. Anyways, main thing is anybody that I do talk to, I could care less about your money. Yeah, I charge money, but I give a lot of my time, believe me. Over 300 hours, I think now. I'm talking about besides the class itself, you'll have access to hundreds of hours of me helping people, and every bit of it's valuable, every bit of it. Anyways, what do you guys want to talk about? I will look at anything you want. 10th grade dropout wrote, I like developing warehouses here in Dallas. Sure is hard to find. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I actually am working on a warehouse deal myself right now. Hey, Chris, glad you're here. Liam, glad you're here. German is the same. Yeah, a lot of people are real uncomfortable. I remember my first warehouse, and let me see if I can, let's see. One of my first warehouses, it was a little bit unnerving, a little bit scary. In fact, that's a semi-warehouse right there. And you can see the loading dock above my head. You're like, what if they move out, or how hard is it going to be to move in? Listen, there's people that have made, millions and millions. And there's big companies that, $1 billion companies. And guess what? All they do is warehouse. In fact, the last warehouse I leased, I'm not going to say who it was exactly, but, believe me, there's furniture guys that don't even have a store, but they have tons of warehouse. People order furniture from their website, and then they have strategic warehouses. Amazon, of course, does the same thing. Wayfair, enormous. I was looking at a Wayfair call center. I was looking at maybe buying one. I was a little bit nervous, though. A call center that was 55,000 square feet. Can you imagine that? 55,000 square feet of people answering the phone. I mean, wow, that's a big one. That wasn't a warehouse. That was just a gigantic call center. And by the way, every time you see a building behind me, it's one that I own or have purchased in the past. I've been doing this for a very long time. And every one of them has a story. So, anything... hey, Liam says he's a 10th grade dropout too. Hey, guess what? There's 3 of us. Anyways, the fact is you're not going to learn the skills that you learn, and they really make you money. You're not going to learn them in school, short of maybe being a doctor or something. And even then, boy, those guys earn their money. I don't ever want to work that hard. So, whatever you guys want to talk about, we can get into. I don't care. We can jump around the internet here. We can. But I was talking about subject to. We can talk about subject to. In fact, let me step out of the camera here for a second, and I'll get this whiteboard going, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that. So that'll warm up there, and we can talk about the problems. There's some major problems with subject to, and I'm not saying don't do it. Listen, I've done lots of things that were a little bit, iffy. There was some risk, but I would never recommend necessarily anybody do a subject to unless they're just really going to keep their hands off it and be very, very clear and clean of it. There's some real problems. There's some real problems with the title. The title is the worst, trickiest part. Everything's got an alienation clause in it now. And I know, listen, it's not a problem. If you have a property that you own in an LLC or a limited partnership, you can deed it over. You can deed it over from your name into that partnership and back and forth. And the bank has no qualms with it. They're fine with it. In my experience, because they understand as long as you own it, as long as you still own it. The problem is some of the recommendations in Pace Morby. I disagree with something. I just did a video on Pace Morby. I guess he's pretty popular with subject twos, but he is wrong, flat out wrong, when he talks about that there isn't a necessity to keep properties in separate LLCs and to commingle so many properties. Now, again, there is a little bit of where I could say he might be okay to do it. I wouldn't recommend it, but the problem is subject to seem to have so little meat on the bone that you almost can't even. It's just not even worth justifying creating the individual LLCs for each one. He says he puts 10 or 20 in a single one. But let me tell you one of the big problems with that. Let me get over to the whiteboard here. And let's see. Okay, I think you guys can hear me, right? Yeah. Okay, so here's the deal. Let's just say you got a house, and whatever. These subject to situations seem to be people that don't have sense enough, or they're depressed, or they whatever for whatever reason. Maybe they got a $300K home and a bank note of $250. Okay, so there's $50,000 there, and the fact is they put it up for sale on the market, and 6% is going to go to an agent. So there's 20 grand. Add a little title insurance and stuff. Now there's only $30,000 sitting there, but maybe they're behind. Maybe they're negative 10,000, 10K. Hope that comes through. Maybe they're 10,000 short. In arrears. Does that come out okay? You guys can see that fine, right? So maybe they're 10K behind in payments. Okay. Well. So there's a little meat on the bone. Now, let's say that this note is at whatever. Let's just say it's at 3%. Okay, and so today, if any of us wants to get a loan, particularly a bank loan right now, you're gonna pay a much higher rate. You might be paying 5.5 or maybe even a little bit more. Okay, so here's some of the big gotchas. And these are really big ones. These are really big gotchas. Okay. If you transfer the person that holds this note, as soon as they transfer this to an LLC, okay, that they do not own and control. That's the key thing. It's one that they do not own and control. I got to duck down. Hang on. Yeah. All right. One that they do not own and control. Well, if they don't own and control it, that is, okay. If they do not own and control it, it's a breach. It's a breach of contract. With who? The bank. Now, the only exception to that not being a breach of contract with the bank is if you own and control the LLC. Bring this down a little bit here. Okay, the reason it's not a breach with the bank with the LLC is if you hold it in your name still. But what Pace Morby had proposed was putting 10 houses in one LLC, which of course 10 different owners, either 9 of them or 1 of them, or they're all going to be they're going to breach their contract. Now, there's another big problem with that. When you transfer out of your name into an LLC that you do not own, you really can't fix it. And I think Pace had said something about putting one in a land trust and then deeding it back because the bank was calling the note. Well, even if he did that, if the land trust that he put the LLC in, if it wasn't completely wholly owned and controlled, or at least majority owned by the person that held the note with the bank, then guess what? Even though you deeded it back, maybe that would satisfy the bank. It shouldn't, though, and I'll tell you why. The title insurance is no longer any good. In other words, they just lost their title insurance, basically, because on closing, that's when the title insurance was issued, okay? And now you've changed ownership. Now it's out the door. So now you would actually have to go get a new title policy. And I was actually having lunch with one of my bankers, and I mentioned this to her, and she said, "Oh yeah, 100%." And in fact, I'm going to have her as a guest on here too. Not just about that, she's actually she's kind of a high net worth individual lender. She's really great, and in fact, she's even given me box tickets at UT. Beautiful, beautiful seats. Let me put it that way. So back to this. So this is the big one here, okay? Now, this is tempting though, because let's just say you want to buy a house, and you can get this house. Let's say you can get it for $250, and you can own it because you can't get a loan. Just say you can't get a loan. In other words, you ruined your credit. It is going to allow you, doing this would allow you, in theory, to get the home, and you're going to basically, pay on this other note that really is secured by a property, even though you didn't create that bank note. You're going to continue to pay, or you're going to make sure that the person you buy from pays it. So that's fine. But again, if you deeded it into an LLC, I don't see any other way around it. The LLC must be mostly owned, if not completely, but just say mostly owned by the person that got the bank note originally, or the persons. Now, that kind of puts you in a little bit of predicament as far as the LLC, but you could probably write in the LLC where you would have control over the asset. Believe me, that's one of the reasons I love real estate so much, is you can write, there are no rules to a degree between a buyer and a seller, but, and that's true, because you can write any agreement you want. You have written agreements that nobody would have ever thought of ever writing, and they work. But, in fact, Liam knows firsthand. He made $350,000, $360 because of that. anyways, so this is the big, con on this is you're breaching your contract. It can trigger an alienation clause. It may not be as simple as just simply handing it back. Handing it back. Here's the other thing: somebody gets into some trouble, and that's why they're doing this. They're just trying to get rid of it. Maybe they're upside down in it. So even if in a situation where somebody's upside down in a house, maybe that the person that's buying a home that couldn't get a loan otherwise, he doesn't mind paying full price. Maybe he'll even pay 110% what it's worth. He'll pay $330,000 for a $300,000 home, but now it can be called, and then he's not going to have the power to save it because the bank's not going to loan to him. It's shit, you don't qualify. And the person that maybe put this deal together, the situation they're going to have is even if they deed it back, they're going to have to at least buy title insurance again. And if the person that owned it originally, you go back to get title insurance again, well, the reason they're selling is probably because they're having some sort of trouble anyways. And who knows, maybe they have some liens. So I'm just saying I'm not saying, I don't know. I was doing the math a little bit. I saw a little piece of Pace on Graham Stephan, whatever, the coffee hour or whatever it's called. I just saw a little bit of it, to be honest. But the numbers he was talking about, controlling or holding 300 million, I think he said, in these notes. I mean, it's not for me. It's something I would never do it. I would never do it. And because he was saying he was making, I think, about $200,000 a month, or $200,000 a month on 300 million. I mean, it's like a fraction of 0.5%. I mean, it's like nothing. It's not, I'm not saying it's nothing, but that's a lot of paper to be shuffling. I'm telling you, in potential trouble. I wouldn't touch it. But again, if that's what he does, that's what he does. And I'd love to talk to you about it, Pace. I don't know. I'm not sure why or how you do it. but anyways, but to your credit, you specialize in it maybe. I see the risk factor more, and I'm kind of more protective of people that are watching. Anyways, so of course so like I said, the pro on this is, and there's other ways to get to this, and you'll learn about it in my class, the mentorship. There's definitely there's things you can do. You can do a contract for deed. It's something I've done many of, and it's actually it was one of the earlier deals that I did that with. But anyways, so I'll go back to the questions. And here I am. I can actually do this now. I'm actually getting the studio dialed in a little bit, so I can actually make that show up a little better. Okay, so back to this screen, and I'm working solo here, which is as rough as this may seem to you watching. This is actually pretty smooth for me. So again, if you just got here, please hit that subscribe button. I've been buying and selling real estate for so long, over 40 years. It's the way to go. And there's another reminder. If you don't have my book, get my book, Wake Up and Smell the Real Estate. It's been a bestseller. You'd be glad you did. I promise you that. And also, as you see around me, the surroundings, I got a weekly webinar I'm doing. And look, for some of you that can't get in, just email me when a time you can, and I'll put a few of you together, and maybe I'll do a webinar for 5 of you or something like that. No big deal. I don't mind, and I won't let anybody in the class that I don't think fits. I mean, if I think you're undercapitalized, I won't do it. I'm not going to ask you to put money on your credit card or borrow money from your parents or whatever, any of that stuff. I just think if you don't have a few grand to invest, you got to work on your skills and make some money. I just don't want to let some guys thrive on people that don't have any money, and not me. I won't do it. I have no interest in it. Anyways, so let's go to the questions here real quick. 10th grade dropout. I've had offers on deals with a ton of subject to language and weird outs. I simply pass on those. I agree. It's just too much. It's too circuitous, as I said. Oh, you're talking about a buyer trying to assume an existing loan. No way, Jose, don't do those. I don't know, 10th grade, but yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with assuming an existing loan as long as it's assumable. It's if you assume a loan that's not assumable, that's where you get into trouble. They can call the note. Liam wrote, I have heard about a company that will sell you subject to insurance for 1% of the existing loan, and if the bank calls a note, they will lend you the money to pay the bank. That sounds like a good offer, but I don't know anybody that would do that. Because, of course, think about that, Liam. 1%. So, that's not terribly far off from a regular title policy anyways. And the problem with that is what if it's a subject to property and there's more money owed on it than it's worth? Like I say, the subject to is attractive to people that don't have money, don't have a down payment or much, and can't get a loan. And so if they take a property subject to a property that's underwater, then what's your company going to do? You know what I mean? I just don't. I just think that they'd look at, they'd probably demand they'd want an appraisal too, is what they would say. They would say, okay, yeah, we'll charge you, we'll do subject to insurance, but the property needs to be appraised and we need to know it's worth, considerably more, maybe 25-30% more than the ticket item, because that's generally what a bank wants, right? They want you to have 25% equity, unless you're dealing with a first-time buyer and it's some government-backed thing, which is probably not going to happen on this. Liam also wrote, it is my understanding that if you transfer ownership, you must pay transfer fees to the county, and the title company will not do it unless existing loan is paid off, or they won't. Well, that's the big catch right there, Liam. They're not going to insure it. If not, let me put it this way: you can transfer it. There doesn't even need to be an escrow, Liam. They can just deed it over. That's not a big deal, and file it and record it. But the problem is they just lost their title insurance. The bank is no longer protected as they were before. 10th grade wrote, most notes have a due on sale. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, alienation clause. Even if they don't, you as a seller must be very cautious. If the buyer doesn't pay, they could still go after the original note signer. Well, you're right. I love that I got such smart subscribers. Anyways, but yeah, that's the whole thing, is it triggers a due on sale. They may not do it. I can tell you, banks in tough time, they might close their eyes. I've moved a bunch of properties over into my LLCs and LTDs, a bunch of them, and the bank doesn't care. I remember talking to them about it once, but maybe they just know me now. And they know that I own and control the asset. Of course, when I'm my schedule of real estate, which I have to have together for, loans when I borrow and buy property, they got to see my whole schedule. Let's see, most notes have a due on, so you got that. Liam wrote, I think a safe way to take over a property is a lease option. Yeah, there's another option, very good, that stays in place till bank is paid. You won't have ownership, but will have control and can rent for the cash flow. Yeah, with limited output for a down payment, I would agree with you, Liam. You could do a lease option, and you could even do a lease option, and you could make it where that you make the payments directly to the bank to make sure that they stay current. And don't forget taxes, right? You got to have taxes paid and insurance. So you almost have to kind of end up being the property insurance and taxes. You got to be that, almost kind of like the PITI insurance. You got to be there. You're making sure it gets covered, because you're the one who's going to lose everything. Because listen, like I say, if it's in somebody else's name, what's really scary is you really don't have title insurance in as much as that protects you. Somebody else is going to, they could do something bad and have a lien against them and have a lien against your home, even though you're leasing it. But I agree, if you could get in a position where you could lease it for peanuts, or a reasonable thing. I don't know. It's just, I don't like any of it. That there's other options that I would do, and you'll learn about those in the mentorship if you get in the mentorship. I don't know that I wrote about them in the book. I don't know. But again, if you just got here, please hit that subscribe. So what else is going on? What do you guys think? By the way, again, I have a webinar I do online, and just like I'm talking right now, but I'll talk to, I don't care if it's 5 or 25 people at a time. It's not a big deal. 100 people, whatever. And if you can't make that, I plan on doing 7 p.m. this Thursday. And if for any reason that doesn't work, but just by filling out, go to the FlipAnythingUSA, and right here. And if I sound tired, I actually really am tired because I got to show you what I've been doing. Oh my gosh, this freezing rain's just been killing me. Let's see here. So you'll see right here in the upper corner, it says right there, webinar. Click on webinar, and that'll take you to a form. And that form right there, you can't hardly see it. That form right there, fill that out. Very simple, right? Name. You don't even have to do the phone number. You can put your phone number if you win, and that's just so that we can text you. Sometimes we send you a link and it goes to spam, and believe me, I'm not going to harass you ever by your phone. I'll definitely give you a follow-up email or something likely, but I'm never going to torture you with the spam and crap that I see other people do. Just, that's one thing. I don't have a bunch of salesmen. This isn't like lead generation, so I can say, here, sick 'em boys, and give your numbers out and say, okay, yeah, I'll give you 20% of whatever course you can sell them, and then they throw you every time. Some people think there's just so much crap out there. I feel sorry for people that are, earnestly trying to get skills and, getting a ridiculous runaround. Anyways, so let's talk about anything else. So questions. If you got a question, I gotta go eat. My boys are starting to make me dinner, and I don't want to miss that. Until somebody tells me let's go somewhere else and look at something, I'll tell you a couple things I got here. 10th grade must have notes due on sale close. Yep. Listen, if there isn't an alienation clause, you can assume it. But if it isn't specifically written, you actually can't assume it. I think a safe way to take over property is lease option that stays in place till bank is paid. Yeah, it's semi-safe, right? I mean, it's semi-safe. You're still subject to the liens of the person that owns it. Yep. Yeah, you actually give me another idea, Leon. One other layer of protection you could kind of sort of put on there. So that's interesting. So hey, listen, I'm gonna call it quits pretty quick. But if you just got here, please hit that subscribe. And if you guys have been wondering where I've been the last several days, I've been in a major ice storm, and I'll show you a real quick picture here. Let me see. I'm just putting a video together here. Maybe you can see it. Yeah, take a look at this. This is some really nasty stuff. And I'm going to show you a lot more. And even while I'm walking through, something's about to break. I can hear it. I'll try to catch it. You can see that branches have already fallen, and they look like a nest, but all that is a big clump of tree that's fallen into another tree. So this is pretty wild. What you see behind me those are leaves that have about a 1/4 inch of ice all the way around them. They're so heavy, it's just snapping and breaking. You can see up here. See that? That used to have a bunch of leaves on the end of it. And there's just all kinds of stuff. Look at here. This is my food trailer park. I have a food park. It collapsed a canopy. This is it. This is stuff breaking down in one of the parking lots, one of my warehouses. It also sheared a light off the wall. I think I get a video of it here. Anyways, it's just a disaster here. Yeah, but so that's it. There'll be a nice video on this for you guys to see. Thanks for watching, and please comment under the video if you get time. Thanks.